What's up, nerds? My name is Jeremy Nathaniel Akers, and I want to talk to you about my favorite liberating structure of all time. The OG, the Big Daddy Cool, the lots of moving parts, but somehow so few moving parts, it's terrifying. Oh, yeah, you know what it is: open space technology. Open space technology, it's, I mean, it's so simple. A child could do it. What are we going to do? We're going to DIY and self organize the shit out of our topics, times, and places. We're going to do that in 4 very easy steps. We're going to sit in a circle. We're going to build a bulletin board. We're going to open a marketplace. And we're going to let people go to fuck to work. Like, it's terrifying how few moving parts is required to include and unleash everyone. And it's a thing of beauty. Open space technology is motivated by this law of mobility. All right. Once upon a time, I think it was referred to as the law of 2 feet, but, we're a bunch of inclusive nerds. And, fuck yeah, Cybertron can get down with us. And the law of mobility is this following: go where you're learning and participating. Open space technology is quite radical in the way that it empowers and enables participation and encourages people to lean into freedom and responsibility at the same time, to self-direct based on their own passions, their own interests, and their own concern for the topics that matters. And open space has a hell of a vibe, right? It's an incredible vibe. Like, if you've met me in real life, you've probably heard me pop off about these open space principles. That whenever it starts is the right time, wherever it starts is the right place, whoever comes are the right people, whenever it's over, and whatever happens is the only thing that could have happened. Like, let that sink into yourself for a second there, nerds. Just close your eyes and imagine a world in which whenever it starts is the right time. And wherever it starts is the right place. That in this world of breathless urgency, whoever comes are the right people. And whenever it's over, it's over. And that whatever happens is the only thing that could have happened. How good does that world feel? How de-escalated does the nervous system become when this is the vibe? And how much fun can we have when this is the vibe? So this is the vibe of open space technology. So let's get into a little bit more of the details. What do we mean by sit in a circle? Well, by sit in a circle, I mean, like, go through this law of mobility and these principles. I hope to God that while you're sitting in a circle with a bunch of nerds, that the reason that they are sitting in that circle is clear. It's very hard to get people to show up for something when they don't have a good sense of what it's about. And that doesn't mean that you got to create blinding clarity for folks. Like, if people show up, again, whoever shows up are the right people. Articulate the reason that is motivating you into this space and let people be motivated by what motivates them. But briefly, explain the process. We're going to sit in this circle. We're going to go through these principles. We're going to arrange a bulletin board. We're going to create a marketplace, and we're going to get to work. Just like all liberating structures, do your damnedest not to talk too long about this shit. I mean, I know I'm a very bad example. I'm talking at length, right? I'm presenting, no less. I mean, God forbid. Oh, the paradox. Presenting around liberating structures. I mean, But I think you can also get a sense that like what I'm doing is like way fucking harder than making use of the structures. Like explaining structures is much more challenging than using them. Using them, 4 steps, ready, set, fucking let her rip. So sit in the circle, go through the principles, talk about the purpose, the reason that you're there. Thank everybody for being present. Acknowledge all the nerds that are in the room, and help them get to drop into the vibe, and make a little laugh. And fuck, if you dare, do a little dance and sing a song together. It may not be the vibe for your gatherings, but it could be a great vibe. Bulletin board. What do I mean by arrange a bulletin board, right? We create this big ass Excel spreadsheet on the wall, right? We got ourselves some rows here. We got ourselves some columns here. And what we do with this bulletin board is we use it to arrange time. I like time and space on those axes. I know some savages that like spaces, that like time and spaces this way. Whatever floats your boat. The point is, you're going to need some form of physical artifact in order to help arrange everybody's time, attention, and energy. I've seen reasonable applications. Sessionize, I think, has a pretty good product. Plug for Sessionize. That enables you to sort of on the fly curate, put stuff in these cells for open space technology. But the point is, we're going to use these cells to arrange time and spaces, and then we're going to put stuff in it. This is the content of this cell, and that may be different than, we might have this stuff going on here, that stuff going on there, more of this stuff over there, more of that stuff there, and finish up with some of these, right? Maybe a little bit of this, whole lots of this going on pretty much every goddamn where, right? And so by arranging our content in this bulletin board, we help people self-organize and decide where they want to go and which piece of content is within any particular time box is the thing that they're the most interested in. And what's great is sometimes that'll be nothing. Sometimes, right? And how many times in your life have you been in on meetings that you didn't give a shit about that were completely irrelevant just because they were on your calendar? So the artifact of the bulletin board is going to give us the opportunity to choose our own adventure and go, hey, yeah, this stuff matters to me. This stuff matters to me. This stuff matters to me. That, nope. And actually, you know what? I think I might be done here, right? Who knows? Vibe the vibe. Hang out. Go spend some time with your kids. Take a fucking nap. So use the bulletin board as a physical artifact to arrange everybody's self-organization, right? If you're familiar with like lean coffee, similar type of vibe, self-organize your own agenda. The difference is that lean coffee is good for a group, whereas open space technology is good for many groups. So, lean coffee, 15 people, lean coffee breaks down pretty hardcore. 10 people, lean coffee gets a little crowded. 5 people, lean coffee is great. But open space technology, I would say, the smallest group I've ran it with was 9. And the biggest group I've ran it with was about 100, 150. And it slaps. It just gives everybody a real good time. So use the artifact of the bulletin board to arrange time and space. What we're also going to do is we're also going to put our notes from these sessions back into the bulletin board. That's optional. Maybe I shouldn't. Anyway, let's keep going. Marketplace. What in God's name do I mean by marketplace? So imagine the vibe. We sit in a big circle. We hold hands. We sing a song. We exchange a group hug. Group hugs are great. That's so funny. Like so many nerds have feelings about group hugs. I'm a huge fan of group hugs. You can find me group hugging often in open space technology. As a matter of fact, true story. One of my stealth metrics that I track in terms of the success of open space technology is how many group hugs took place during my experience of open space. If there are lots of group hugs, then I've had a great time. So we've sat around, we've done the circle thing, we have self-organized stuff in this bulletin board. Then what do we need to do? We need to come back and arrange everybody's attention to what the fuck's in the bulletin board. And for sure, the artifact is there to help us, but like so many artifacts, like so many processes, it needs some activation. It needs some additional enablement and empowerment in order to really sing. And what we're going to do is we're basically just going to go around that circle again, and participants are going to propose the session that they want, right? And, that's the confluence of topics, time, and place, right? Those are the three aspects on our bulletin board. We have the content, the subject matter, the self, the cell. We have the time that we're going to address that topic. We have the specific place that topic is intended to be addressed. That's it. That's the vibe. And, we invite people that are interested in that topic to meet. If you want to be super specific about it, if you go, hey, these type of people I'm going to need to address this type of stuff. If you're a super hyper goal-oriented person, fucking go for it. If you just say, hey, whoever wants to vibe the vibe and check this shit out, let's do it. Keep in mind that as you're going through this thing, you may notice that, your thing and my thing seem very similar. Be wary of collapsing complexity too much. Still make space for your differences. But, hey, you'll notice that this is a very chaotic process. It's nice and juicy, sticky and wet. As topics are proposed and people realize, ooh, I'm interested in this and I'm interested in that. Can we move this shit around? Can we shuffle it? Can we try and suit everybody's needs to minimize my FOMO? Can we figure out a way to get all that stuff in there? What you may also notice around creating your marketplace is that a lot of folks, most open spaces tend to be dominated by people pushing topics, pushing their agenda, which is great. Get what you want and what you care about and what you need from your open space. I'm a bad open space facilitator, and then I have ideas, and I think I'm always really interested in pulling things into the open space, pulling especially questions into open space. So rather than pushing my topic and saying I want to do a thing, I want to talk about this, to say, hey, look, I don't have a workshop figured out. I don't have a presentation. All I have is question, and the people that are also interested in that question, I would like to invite them. And if you have a workshop, if you know things about that, then great, awesome, show up and help us explore that question together. I think it's a really, really superior vibe. Generally speaking, for this marketplace action, you would expect to take 30 minutes. If you're doing I think 2 hours is a good length, a sort of minimal length for open space technology. I've done it in 1 hour, and that always feels super fucking rushed. It stresses me out. But I think 2 hours is great. And, if you're doing a big open space technology, for, multi-day, jam fest or an unconference, something like that, then, it's not crazy at all to spend, an hour and a half, really trying to figure out, ooh, when are we going to do this shit? So keep that in mind. Open space can be a very wide variety of lengths. And what you may notice with regards to open space technology is that there's a number of different patterns of participation. We talked a little bit about this vibe of hosts, right? People that hold session and push content, and the distinction between, sort of holders, people who hold a question, they hold a desire, These might be your sponsors as well. They might want to get something out of your open space. Nothing wrong with that. I'm a huge fan of practical space. As a matter of fact, I think that is what really makes makes open space sing. When you've got something that you're working towards, that of course that matters, and having that nerd in the room to say, "Hey, I want this," is great actually to ensure engagement and participation. Nevertheless, there are some roles in open space that you may have heard about or may be unfamiliar. Bumblebees sort of cross-pollinate. They bounce around from topic to topic to topic. Remember that law of mobility. If you're not learning anything, if you're not actively participating, then, feel free to fuck off and, go somewhere else. Go check something else out. So bumblebees have a tendency of, either having super FOMO vibes or just really having, aggressive, I want to see everything, and be in a hyper curious energy. They tend to bounce from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. And there's a great value in that cross-pollination from one context to the next that can help weave threads of connection where they belong. Another way of weaving threads of connection are with our unsung cross-pollinators, the ladybug gang, ladybug boys, that I've also heard of sort of referred to as moles. And these folks also do the cross-pollination thing, but they tend to do it in a little bit less of a frenetic way, and perhaps sometimes more intentionally, really connecting related topics and subject matter across different sessions. And that can be throughout time, but that can also be happening in, hey, there seems like there's two conversations that are happening in these different places at the same time, and maybe I'm going to bounce back and forth between these things just so I can sort of, again, weave these threads and cross-pollinate. And then you've got butterflies. Butterflies, you may notice, don't attend a whole shit ton of sessions. They just sort of hang out in the lobby, the liminal space, the hall of doors, and just vibe the vibe. If you find me in an unconference or in an open space, there is a greater than 50% chance that I spend the entire time in that butterfly role. I mean, I tend to have some responsibility around posting these goddamn things, facilitating, and I find the vibe of hanging out in the liminal space really great. It's actually my pro tip, especially in conferences, any form of conference, but especially in an unconference, participatory thing. Whenever there's a lot of stuff on the agenda that you want to be a part of, figure out a way to crew up and to, make contact with people who are going to those sessions that you maybe wanted to participate in, but are going to choose to do something else. So what I'm trying to say is that butterflies, let me be specific. The very first Regens Unite, the gathering that we held in Brussels in 2022, 2-day open space technology, basically. And I did not attend a single motherfucking session, and it really surprised me. We had, I say basically open space because we had an opening session every day, like an opening workshop, an opening circle, and a closing circle every day. And my job was hosting that shit. But other than that, I did not attend a single goddamn session the whole 2 days. I just sat in this sort of in-between space where all the different sessions were taking place, and I just talked to everybody as they came out of their sessions and they went to the next thing. I was like, hey, where were you just at? What did you just do? So by occupying this space and making connections with the people that were here and there, I somehow, by missing everything, ended up not missing anything, right? I had access to all of the vibes that were going on in all these different spaces and the impressions that they left upon people. So that's a venerable path, right? I think you can absorb a lot of information there, and it's my favorite, so that's why I talk about it the longest, deal with it. And of course, I think about everybody as like a swarm. Like what we're doing is we're activating hive mind, collective, decentralized collective intelligence, distributed cognition, whatever you want to call it, right? And so everybody's just swarms. And, documentation, is a really, really good idea for those nerds that, don't get the butterfly vibe, that, may not have had the conversation during lunch with somebody who went to that other thing. Creating an artifact that, collecting your notes and creating some form of output or report is a really great vibe. It helps to increase participation and visibility into what went down there, that can be exported not only to people in the open space gathering itself, but also to your wider stakeholder environment, right? If you guys do a great job of collecting documentation for all of these sessions, and what I mean documentation, I mean, pictures of the sessions. I mean, fucking links that came up during the discussion. I mean, documents. I mean, videos. I mean, resources that came up in conversation. Any type of sense-making artifact that that the group uses and creates can be a really good vibe, and make a laundry list of all your different, all your different frameworks and thinky tools, and your liberating structures, of course. Add those to the bulletin board, create yourself a fucking zine, for all I give a shit. Documentation's a good vibe. Artifacts are great. These durable things in culture. I've hosted shit tons of these unconferences and open spaces, and the thing I always wish I had more of was more documentation, more proof of the vibe, more artifacts of what went down and how it happened. Great value. Open space can be used in an enormous number of ways. Like, if you look back at this channel, my very first video was basically a glorified open space, with a bunch of other shit bolted on. What you're looking at is a horrible visual from open space agility, just fucking nightmarish. What the fuck is going on here? But what you'll notice is that open space meetings are a cornerstone of whatever this fucking process is that takes place. Open space agility, it's a thing. Check it out. It's good for you. Open space beta, another fucking, what is the deal with these nerds and these fucking horrible visuals? What is going on here? Like, what is this? I mean, you guys see what I'm creating, and this is, is my stuff this illegible? Probably. Fuck off. Dude, man, that was rude to say. How could you? Like, I thought we were friends. So, open space beta. Basically, these nerds do organizational transformation in the context of an open space facilitation. Yay for them. The fast, agile thing, the fluid, agile scaling technology. Slightly better visual, still fucking horrible. Like, I don't like it. It's got too much going on. Like, whatever. My opinion. Deal with it. What you notice? Marketplace. Self-organization. They use, it's basically the whole point behind the vibe behind fast, agile. Yeah, roles and stuff going on, but run an open space every other day. Hey, check that out. Check how much easier your coordination got when you do when you're iterating in a 2-day increments, and your stakeholders know that everything's going to happen on that open space. It reduces complexity enormously. That's all I'm saying. Open space technology, like, of all the liberating structures, I have successfully thrown open space technology at more different types of challenges. I've thrown open space technology at sprint reviews. Sprint reviews, especially, with multiple teams, love open space technology, or some form of shift and share, a choose your own adventure path to talk about the increment you've created. Organizational change, and, bottoms up, like, how do we do working groups type thing. loves open space technology. But I want to go back to just the basics, and get to, this is the, let's highlight this. This is the reference definition, the 1.0, the original version back in 2016. And reference that, the following constitutes the entire core definition of open space technology. Sit in a circle, build a bulletin board, open a marketplace, and get the fuck to work, nerds. I want to read this guy. I haven't read it before, but, if this is the origin story for open space technology, that sounds like a great story and a great vibe. Written by Harrison Owen. So strap in, kids. Either fuck off or get yourself a cup of tea and some popcorn, whatever you like. Open space technology is a definable approach to organizing meetings. As a definable approach to organizing meetings has been in existence for somewhere more than a dozen years. Truthfully, I suspect it has been around as long as Homo sapiens have gathered for one purpose or another. From the days of the camp circle onward. It is only that our modern wisdom has obfuscated what we already knew and have experienced from the beginning. But that is getting somewhat ahead of our story. In 1985, 85 brave souls or thereabouts gathered in the Monterey for the third annual International Symposium on Organization Transformation. The first two iterations of this continuing international event, we are now at OT16, were organized in the most traditional manner. Papers, panels, and all the rest. But the consensus of participants was that despite the monumental planning effort extending over a long time, the real excitement came in the coffee breaks, which of course weren't planned at all. And so the third International Symposium was going to be different. Oh, and different it was. At the point of arrival, the participants knew only when things would start, when it would conclude, and generally what the theme might be. There was no agenda, no planning committee, no management committee, and the only facilitator in evidence essentially disappeared for several hours. Just 85 people sitting in a circle, much to the amazement of everybody, though. 2.5 hours later, we had a 3-day agenda totally planned out, including multiple workshops. All the conveners, times and places, and participants. Observably, the operative mechanism was simplicity itself. As each person determined that they had some area of exploration they would like to pursue, they would write a brief description on a small placard. Once their topic on the announce their topic to the assembled group and post the placard on the wall and sit down. When no further topics were posted, the original proposers determined the time and place for meeting, and anybody interested in the particular topic signed up. That was it. For several years following, the annual symposium was conducted in a similar fashion. The only real difference was that the more people came and it took less time to get organized. It seemed like the most natural thing in the world that 150 or more executives and consultants should sit in a circle and organize a multi-session, 3-day meeting in less than an hour, with not a single argument. If anybody gave it a thought, which I doubt, this miraculous occurrence was probably attributed to the outstanding nature of the assembled group. And then, in 1989, open space escaped. Within a period of less than a month, open space was utilized with two vastly different groups in widely separated areas. Polymer chemists from DuPont, fuck those guys, by the way. Sorry, that's my commentary. As you can see, that's not there. But fuck DuPont, for real. Watch Blackwater. Polymer chemists from DuPont wrestled with the future of Dacron in the USA, followed immediately by a group of scholars and executives in India considering the issue of learning in organizations. In both cases, everybody sat in a circle, identified what had heart and meaning for them, and collectively organized a multi-session gathering in less than an hour. Something rather strange was taking place. In subsequent years, the space has continued to open. At this point, the experience described above has been replicated literally thousands of times in all continents, with the group size ranging from 5 to over 1,000. Participants have come from Fortune 500s, third world villages, religious communities, government agencies, and whole towns. They've been rich, poor, educated, and not, labor and management, politicians and people, and all of the above. And in each case that I know of, open space appeared to do the job. Doing the job begs for further specificity. In the case of open space, it means, at the very least, that diverse, often conflicted groups, up to 1,000 people, manage hugely complex issues in minimum amounts of time, with no advanced agenda preparation, and little to no overt facilitation. Typically, by the conclusion of the gathering, the following promises have been kept. Every issue of concern to anybody had been laid upon the table. All issues were discussed to the extent that anybody cared to do that. A full written record of all discussions existed and was in the hands of all participants. All issues were ranked in priority order. Critical focus issues had been isolated and next step action identified for their resolution. Also to be included under the heading of doing the job are a range of manifest behaviors evidenced by the participant group. In a typical open-spaced, self-managed work groups are the general mode of operations, distributed leadership the norm, and diversity is perceived as a rich resource to be cherished, as opposed to a problem to be managed. It is usually noted that participants treat each other with respect, that conflict inevitably seems to yield deeper outcomes, and high energy, often experienced as playful, is the marked characteristic of the occasion. It is reasonable to ask, what on earth is going on? The mere thought of inviting 500 relative strangers, united by little more than their conflict around a particular issue, to join together for a 3-day gathering without a shred of agenda preparation, a small army of facilitators, should be sufficient to raise eyebrows. The suggestion that something productive might occur obviously contravenes most of what we have taught and are learned about meeting management and the care and feeding of hostile groups, and definitely qualifies as outrageous. And yet productive outcomes from unlikely quarters have been a continuing experience of groups gathered in open space all over the planet. The outrageous is now common. Somehow incipient or actual chaos is productive of order, and regularly. What's the secret? Some have suggested that the 4 principles and the 1 law which guide the behavior in open space provide the clues. The principles are, whoever comes is the right people, which reminds people in the small groups that getting something done is not a matter of having 100,000 people and the chairman of the board. The fundamental requirement is people who care to do something, and by showing up, that essential care is demonstrated. 2. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have, keeps people focused on here and now, and eliminates all the could have beens, should have beens, and might have beens. What is the only thing there is the moment. What is the only thing there at the moment. Whenever it starts is the right time, alerts people to the fact that inspired performance and genuine creativity rarely, if ever, pay attention to the clock. They happen or not when they happen. 4. Lastly, when it's over, it's over. In a word, don't waste time. Do what you have to, and when it's done, move on to something more useful. The law is the so-called law of 2 feet, which states simply, if at any time you find yourself in any situation where you are neither learning nor contributing, use your 2 feet to move to some place more to your liking. Such a place might be another group, or even outside and into the sunshine. No matter what, don't sit there feeling miserable. The law, as stated, may sound like rank hedonism, but even hedonism has its place, reminding us that unhappy people are unlikely to be productive people. Actually, the law of 2 feet goes rather beyond hedonistic pandering to personal desires. One of the most profound impacts of the law is to make it exquisitely clear and precisely who is responsible for the quality of a participant's learning. If any situation is not learning rich, it is incumbent upon the individual participant to make it so. There is no point in blaming the conference committee, for none exists. Responsibility resides within the individual. One of the more surprising gifts of the law of 2 feet is the apparent contribution to conflict resolution. I say apparent because I have no direct evidence connecting the law and the resolution of conflicts. But it is true that intensely conflicted groups of people find effective and amicable solutions in open space without the benefit of formal conflict resolution procedure or even intermediary facilitators. Apparently, they do it all by themselves. By way of example, consider 100-plus Zulus, Xhosa, Afrikaners, and Brits struggling to gain understanding of each other as they worked to create New South Africa. Or how about 225 federal bureaucrats, state and local bureaucrats, and Native Americans gathered to work out approaches to building roads on tribal lands. Sounds like Wounded Knee all over again. But in fact, no blood was shed and the task was accomplished. So what is going on? Truthfully, I don't know. However, I suspect it is the law of 2 feet at work. Observably, participants intensely engaged up to the point they can't stand it anymore, and then exercise the law of 2 feet. They will walk away, cool off, and come back for more. Apparently, the common concern to achieve resolution keeps people together, and the law allows them to separate when things become too hot to handle. Coming back to the original question, why does open space work? I don't think it has much to do with the 4 principles or the law of 2 feet. In fact, the principle and the law appear to function more descriptively than prescriptively. In other words, and as strange as it may sound, both the principles and the law simply acknowledge what people are going to do anyhow. If there is any substantive contribution derived from either principle or law, it is merely to eliminate all the guilt. After all, people are going to exercise the law of 2 feet, mentally if not physically. But now, they do not have to feel badly about it. By the same token, Meetings will start when they start, regardless of what the clock says, so why feel badly about it? Just get on with the business. Truthfully, the elimination of major pieces of guilt and blame can go a long way towards the enhancement of group function, but not far enough to explain the quantum jumps in productivity typically experienced in open space. Something else is going on. That something else is, I believe, self-organization. Ever since Meg Wheatley published Leadership and the New Science, excitement around self-organization and complexity has been building. One of the oddest manifestations of this emergent interest, no pun intended, I'm sure. Get it? Emergent interest, complex. Anyway, one of the oddest manifestations of this emergent interest is the number of people who have apparently dedicated themselves to the organization of self-organization. I think there's something wrong with this picture. Either there is such a thing as self-organization, in which case, why bother? Or there isn't, and why bother? I have a growing, perhaps nagging suspicion that there is no such thing as non-self-organizing system, at least in the natural world, which would include us. Should this be true, then much of what we are currently doing under the heading of getting organized is rather a waste of time, and the potential implications are fairly mind-boggling. Regardless of the accuracy of my nagging suspicion, I feel quite confident that the phenomenon of self-organization lies at the heart of open space. One of the most significant players in the growing field of self-organizing systems, also known as complex adaptive systems, is Stuart Kauffman. Kauffman is a member of the Santa Fe Institute and biologist by training and profession. He has set himself the modest task to figure out how life may have emerged from a rich stew of molecules, way back when. The details are contained in his 1995 book, At Home in the Universe. Admittedly, he is a biologist working with biological systems and therefore somewhat removed from the realm of human systems. I am by no means sufficiently expert to judge the validity of his findings, although his colleagues seem to take him quite seriously. In any event, scattered amongst some very esoteric biology and interesting mathematics are what I take to be Kauffman's understanding of the essential preconditions for self-organization. Nowhere does he state them exactly as I will, but I do think I have the flavor. The essential preconditions are 1. A relatively safe nutrient environment. 2. High levels of diversity and complexity in terms of the elements to be self-organized. 3. Living at the edge of chaos. In a word, nothing will happen if everything is sitting like a lump. 4. An inner drive towards improvement. Hence, if you are an atom, it would be useful to get together with another atom to become a molecule. 5. Sparsity of connections. This one is a little hard to visualize, and it was a real surprise to me. Kauffman is suggesting that self-organization will only occur if there are few prior connections between the elements, between the elements. Indeed, he says no more than 2. In retrospect, it seems to make sense. If everything is hardwired and advanced, how could it self-organize? Kauffman's precondition for self-organization in no way prove that open space works. But there is no need for that, as people all over the world in thousands of situations know that it works. Indeed, the fact that it works seems to be the problem, eliciting the natural question why. It is an answer to that question that I find Kauffman's observations most intriguing. The intrigue drives in part from the similarity of what Kaufman is saying and what I have said for almost dozens of years when asked, what are the appropriate conditions for using open space? My answer has been, open space is appropriate in any situation where there is real business issue to be solved, marked by high levels of complexity in terms of the issues to be resolved, high levels of diversity in terms of the people needed to solve it, high levels of conflict, potential or actual, and there is a decision time of yesterday. Given these conditions, open space is not only appropriate, but always seems to work. Without going through a point-by-point comparison, I would like to believe that Kaufman and I are looking at pretty much the same phenomenon, albeit at different realms. And of course, that phenomenon is the process of self-organization. The one thing I missed, but Kaufman saw, is the necessity for a sparsity of connections. I had noticed, however, that groups with a long-standing history of associations took to open space at a marginally slower rate than groups only recently come together. I suspect that the difference may be traced to the sparsity of prior connection. So if Kaufman and I are looking at the same elephant, where do we go from here? The answer, I think, lies in a curious phrase which appears mantra-like throughout Kaufman's work. Order for free. Given the reality of self-organization, the presence of order is no mystery, nor the product of great struggle. It is only what one might expect. In short, order is free. Switching from the world of biological systems to the very different world of corporations and other human systems, suppose that order is free there too. If true, this would mean that most, perhaps all of our current activities dedicated to system design, redesign, and the like were suspect and quite possibly unneeded. Talk about a paradigm shift and turning the world on its head. Now back to open space. If it turns out that the global experience of thousands of people in an open space environment is something other than a massive aberration, it could be seen that self-organization in the realm of human systems was an everyday occurrence. It is in this light that I choose to view the significance of open space technology. It is not about having better meetings, although that certainly takes place. It is about experiencing the mystery and power of self-organization to the end that we might learn to be at home in this rather strange, possibly new universe, to borrow the title of Kaufman's book. And we have a lot to learn. But our learnings will not be of the sort we have experienced in the past. No longer will it be necessary to learn the fundamentals of self-managed work groups, empowered and distributed leadership, community building, and appreciation of diversity as a resource and not as a problem to be managed. All of these things apparently happen as natural acts in an open space environment. We might, of course, learn to do them better, but when the essential conditions for self-organizations are met, all of the above just seem to happen, almost in spite of ourselves. And there is further learning, all about control. We have been taught forever, it seems, that the essence of management is control. And if you're out of control, you're out of a job. Not terribly long ago, the function of management was described as making the plan, managing the plan, and meeting the plan. All of that adds up to control. It now turns out that we can make any plan we want to, but managing to the plan is not a frustration. But managing to that plan is an act of frustration. And meeting that. Oh, fuck. And meeting that original plan is not only impossible, but probably inadvisable. Worst of all, perhaps best of all, it turns out that the systems we are supposed to control, to say nothing about the environment in which they exist, are so very horribly complex as to defy comprehension, and what you can't comprehend is very difficult to control. The lessons from open space is a simple one. The only way to bring an open space gathering to its knees is attempt to control it. It may, therefore, turn out that the one thing we always wanted, control, is not only unavailable, but unnecessary. After all, if order is for free, we could afford being out of control and love it. Emergent order appears in open space when the conditions for self-organization are met. Perhaps now we can relax and stop working so hard. God damn. So that was written by the beloved and late Harrison Owen. But what a badass motherfucker, man. Oh, this is the vibe, man. Oh, thank God that this is the vibe. Oh. Thank God for this vibe. This is the Vibe Nerds. My name's Jeremy Akers, Jeremy Nathaniel Akers. Thank you for your time, attention, and energy. This is the Vibe.